Yes, I watched Spellbound, and I have feelings about it. Feelings which I am now going to subject you to. Sit down! Okay, my first impression of this film is, I loved it. I didn't read any reviews or watch any videos beforehand, so I walked in with a totally unbiased attitude.
Are you sure about that?
Okay, that's not entirely true. I heard that Alan Menken, legendary Disney composer Alan Menken, did the music, and once that was in my brain, it was impossible for me to not feel some type of way about it. But other than that, it was a blank slate. I'm gonna save the things I didn't like for later, so right now, here's the stuff I liked. First off, just the vibe of this film is so stupendously... I don't even know how else to describe it, besides a bizarre yet perfect mesh of a classic Disney film and a classic Pixar film. Like, I'm saying this feels more like a Disney film than Raya or Strange World did, let alone Ralph Breaks the Internet. And it feels more like a Pixar film than Lightyear, or Turning Red, or Luca, or a bunch of the others that have come out recently. And considering who did the music and who was producing, I'm not surprised. I found myself laughing and crying and just enjoying watching this film. Like, just pure, simple enjoyment of a fun product. Which, honestly, I didn't realize up until that moment that I haven't felt that in years. And that's sad. The majority of the jokes were great. I don't remember actively rolling my eyes at any of them. The songs were amazing. I'm sure the musically intellectual among you could probably dissect them 6 ways to Sunday, but I just enjoy listening to them, okay? They're just nice songs. And I have been stuck listening to them for days on end. Then say nothing about the emotional storytelling, which I thought was just done so well. I mean, for the most of the film anyway. We'll get back to that. It's funny, I was telling my dad the other day, the premise, in a way, reminded me a lot of when we saw the first trailer for Ratatouille way back in the day. Does anyone else remember that first initial teaser they made?
No.
Okay, after watching that, me and my whole family were very confused. We didn't understand the premise, we thought it looked strange, but it was Pixar and Brad Bird, so we gave it a chance, and go figure, it's a masterpiece. It felt so similar with Spellbound. I didn't really get the premise from just watching the trailer. I wasn't sure how it was going to weave itself into an interesting story, but then I watched it, and everything made sense. The monsters bit, spoilers, is a metaphor for arguing parents and an unstable home. It's so clever! Look at that! The parents are monsters, but literally! I love it! Guy's being creative. Look at that. Though I have to give most of the credit in this case to the opening musical number, because it really helped highlight that metaphor that they were going for, and it captured the feeling of the circumstances just so well. It's just great. I will put a note here, though, that my dad said he felt like the lyrics of the songs weren't like 100%. And if you actually look closely, it turns out Alan Menken literally just did the music, and some other guy, I think his name's Glenn,
This guy!
did the lyrics, so, I mean, it explains that. I don't mind it too much. I don't really notice it excessively.
You hesitated.
Alright. I loved so many of the visual choices. The water drops on the piano. So many creative ideas like the echo tunnel and the shifting sands. Watching this film just felt like being bombarded with a burst of creativity. It was honestly so refreshing, you have no idea. I can only assume that one of the biggest reasons for this is John Lasseter, who used to be the king of Pixar / the Duke of Disney, who almost single-handedly carried the company through the 2000s and early 2010s. Seriously, have you guys checked the credits? He's in all of them.
No.
I will always love the touch Lasseter brings to his films, even if he's just producing. And watching Spellbound, I could see his fingerprints all over it, and I have a sneaking suspicion it is the main reason the film wound up being as charming as it is. AKA the reason it feels kind of like a Pixar film, in some ways. Not only does that apply to the wacky, fun, childlike nature of so many of the jokes, it also applies to the serious moments, which we all know Pixar was famous for when Lasseter worked there. The song The Way It Was Before was the song that made me tear up. The way they captured that feeling of having your happy childhood essentially stripped away from you is brutally perfect. I honestly could never do it better, even if I tried. It was good! And every heartfelt moment afterward captured my attention in a similar way. I honestly really love the film for that. And it would have been perfect if it hadn't been for... Okay, yes, it's time to talk about the thing people won't shut up about. The ending. I mentioned once before that the premise of the film is Princess Elian has parents who were turned into monsters and she has to turn them back. The monsters angle is a metaphor for arguing dysfunctional parents, and Elian is just trying to hold their home together and get things back to the way they were before. I love it. Great premise. Only problem is, their happy ending is the parents get divorced. Look, a strawberry. Now, before I continue, I just want to say that I think a lot of people out there have been kind of immediately jumping to the negative side of the conversation, but I want to first acknowledge what little good there actually is here. Watching the film, I instinctively understood what the director was allegedly trying to do. It is a true, albeit sad, reality that a lot of kids in modern America have to deal with their parents getting divorced. And the goal of the film was to be a comforting message to those kids who are having to deal with that. Things are going to be different, but it's going to be okay. That is what the director was trying to say. And as a message for a kids' movie, I think that's brilliant. Adults could stand to hear that. It's such a universal and relevant message for so many people going through so many different life changes. And in another film, it might have been perfect. But here, it kind of doesn't land because the change the movie is talking about is sort of a morally reprehensible one. Look, don't get me wrong, relationships can be a mess, and there are certain grounds for divorce, most notably cheating or abuse. But this film doesn't portray that kind of dysfunction. It portrays the parents as just fighting all the time. Still a relatable problem, but not necessarily grounds for divorce, and certainly not one I would ever put at the end of a fairy tale story framed as the morally good outcome. Because it's not. Look, director lady, I see what you were going for, I really do, but you set up the movie wrong for the ending you wanted. Your ending could, in theory, work in another movie, but in this one, the only true good finale is the parents learning their lesson. The way the arguments are written and the way their particular dysfunction is portrayed illustrates a very immature couple. Both of them need to grow up and learn how to have grown-up arguments and come to grown-up resolutions. Like Elian said, every family argues, and yes, some of those arguments can get very nasty, but guess what? You made a solemn vow when you married this person, and now you have a daughter who is equally both of yours. You can't undo marriage, and you can't unmake a child. This is your reality, and you are still an able-bodied, grown-up individual, and you won't solve anything by running away from your problem. Separation is numbing the symptoms. It is not the solution to the problem. Yes, we all want the arguments to stop. No one likes them, and it makes for a pretty dismal household. But again, they aren't the problem. They are a symptom. The problem lies in the people. They need to figure some stuff out. They need to make compromises. Why? Because if they loved that person enough to marry them, they should love them more than what they're arguing for. And they should love their child more than the arguing too. During the watching of the film, when the mom says she thinks we don't love her, That was the moment I expected the parents to go, shoot, us behaving like children has hurt our daughter. We need to be better parents and better spouses so that we don't hurt her or each other anymore. That's what I was expecting, because it would be the emotionally mature thing to do. But no, we're just going to remind our daughter that we love her as we rip the family in half so we don't have to deal with each other anymore. If the only way you can love someone is by not having to deal with them anymore, that's not love. You are treating them like an accessory to your life. I'm sorry, there's just no other way of putting that.
Nah.
Now again, I don't want to step on anyone's toes here. I understand. Every family situation is very unique and different, and there are some people who will just stubbornly refuse to get along, or they go and do some really horrible things, and after that, there's not really much anyone can do to salvage the situation. But again, if the movie wanted to portray a truly irredeemable marriage, they could have. Tastefully, maybe more suggestively. But it didn't do that. It portrayed a very specific kind of dysfunction, and then it portrayed the wrong solution. Again, Miss Director, it could have worked in a different movie. It could have, but not this one. Alternatively, you could have ended the movie like this. The parents stay monsters. I was kind of wondering about how much setup there was with Step by Step, hinting that Elian would just go ahead and be crowned queen, combined with the message of I could get used to this. Weird song, by the way. Love the music, but I was slowly losing my mind watching that sequence. What even, you guys?
Why do my nostrils whisper to me?
The classic Disney film. Anyway, both those narratives combined, I was thinking, well, maybe the parents are kind of irredeemable. And that's what the film's trying to get at. And the end result is that Elian loses them and has to carry on by herself. And that could be a metaphor for any number of very traumatic childhood scenarios, but it would still hammer home the message that the director wanted, which was, your life is going to change, but it's going to be okay. Elian may not be able to have her old life back, but she can still forge a new one. And she'll be able to make new happy memories. Not like the old ones, but still good. Yeah, still good. I mean, it's one way to go for sure. At least it doesn't excuse the parents entirely. Their punishment for doing what they did is staying monsters. There's some accountability in that. But again, I do think the best ending would have been the parents trying harder to be better people to each other and their daughter, funnily enough. It's a fairy tale after all. Aren't we allowed happy endings in fairy tales? Because this ain't happy. It's putting up with, which is not the same. I also felt like the first half of the film meanders just a bit. And the whole thing with the magic fob and finally getting an answer out of the oracles was a pain. I kind of want to unsee Mr. Body Swapped Guy, and there were a couple moments near the climax that felt a little contrived, but those were kind of lesser complaints, I guess. Anyway, as a whole, I do still like the film. It's absolutely a step up from Skydance's last film, Luck, which just felt kind of weird in a lot of ways. But this had a whole lot more going for it. They just didn't stick the landing, which is unfortunate, because I was really rooting for this one. All in all, probably don't show this one to your kids, but if you want to give it a watch, I would still recommend it, because you probably will have a good time for most of the film at least. And the songs will get stuck in your head. I'd probably rate this a 6, maybe 7 out of 10, and I may rewatch it at some point, though I will definitely keep listening to the music. And I am super excited for Skydance's next film, Kakapoo, directed by the co-director of Tangled.
That doesn't make you happy?
Until next time, my beloved Flibberty Gibbets.
Weird.
No, I'm serious.